It all began with a letter. A plain white envelope taped to my mailbox, stamped with the HOA's smug little logo. A gold house surrounded by laurel leaves, like they were the United Nations of suburbia. Inside was a notice of violation for, wait for it, a garden gnome. Not a loud party, not an uncut lawn, not a neon mailbox. A garden gnome. Apparently, unauthorized yard decor, violated subsection 3C of the Neighborhood Aesthetic Harmony Guidelines. I thought it was a joke. My gnome Gerald just stood there holding a tiny fishing pole, minding his own business. But nope. HOA President Karen, yes, her name is actually Karen, signed it herself. She wrote, "This is your first and only warning. Remove the unauthorized ornament within 48 hours or face a $50 fine." I chuckled, shook my head, and set the letter aside. I figured she was just bored. The neighborhood was spotless. Lawns manicured like golf courses, mailboxes in military alignment. What could she possibly patrol next? Little did I know Gerald would start a war. By the next morning, Karen was pacing in front of my yard, camera in hand, muttering something about neighborhood values. I waved. She didn't wave back. Instead, she took another photo. And that's when I realized this wasn't about the gnome. This was about control. And she just picked the wrong house to mess with. The next day, I found Karen crouched near my hedges like she was filming an episode of CSI Suburbia. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, documenting evidence. "Morning," I said, sipping my coffee. "Want me to pose with Gerald for your report?" She didn't laugh. "You're aware," she began, flipping through papers, "that unauthorized ornaments disrupt the uniform visual appeal of our community." Uniform visual appeal? I repeated. "Karen, we live in a neighborhood, not a military parade." She frowned. "Rules maintain order, Mr. Miller." I nodded slowly. "You mean your rules?" That was the first time I saw her flinch. The HOA board was basically her kingdom, a handful of neighbors too polite or too afraid to oppose her. That afternoon I got another letter. Fine imposed, $50. Failure to comply may result in legal action. So, naturally, I introduced Gerald to friends. By sunset, 3 new gnomes joined him. One with a watering can, one reading a book, and one mooning the sky. The next morning, Karen nearly combusted. "This is an escalation," she shrieked. "Technically," I said. "It's decoration." I started recording everything. Her visits, her notes, her endless rules. My gut told me this would get worse. And boy was I right. Within a week, the HOA's mailbox became my new pen pal. Every day a new letter. Violation. Unapproved lawn decor. Violation. Trash bins visible for more than 12 minutes post-collection. Violation. Front door color not in HOA-approved palette. Apparently my navy blue door was now too bold. I decided to respond in kind, politely of course. "Dear HOA," I wrote, "I regret to inform you that my door refuses to conform to oppressive chromatic standards. Yours rebelliously, Mr. Miller." Karen didn't find it funny. The next meeting invitation arrived soon after. Mandatory compliance review. At the meeting, Karen sat at the head of the table, flanked by her loyal lieutenants, Greg, who mowed twice a day, and Sheila, who once filed a complaint about wind chimes. "Mr. Miller," Karen began, "we've noticed increasing hostility toward community regulations." "Hostility?" I said. "I'm just expressing myself. Non-compliance is unacceptable." I smiled. "So is selective enforcement." The room went silent. See, I'd done my homework. Greg's driveway had an unapproved sealant. Sheila's roses extended 6 inches beyond the property line. And Karen? She had a shed built without a permit. I didn't mention it yet. Not yet. I was saving that card for when things got really spicy. It was grocery day, the one peaceful time of my week. I returned home with a trunk full of food, including my favorite indulgence, double fudge ice cream. As I was unloading, Karen's son, Ethan, a 20-something entrepreneur who hadn't worked a day in his life, strolled over. "Hey, nice haul," he said, eyeing my bags. "Thanks," I replied, distracted. Then before I could blink, he snatched a grocery bag right out of my cart and strutted off toward his house. "Hey," I shouted. "That's mine." He shrugged. "Neighborhood tax," he joked. "Put it back, Ethan." "Make me." I laughed, the kind of laugh you give when you know someone just signed their own doom. Karen came marching out. What's going on here? Your son took my groceries. She folded her arms. Ethan said you offered them. Really? Because my hand was still holding the bag. She pointed at me. You're harassing my son. I recorded everything. By nightfall, another letter appeared. HOA complaint. Aggressive behavior toward a resident. Aggressive? For asking for my groceries back? That was it. I opened my laptop, pulled up the HOA bylaws and started digging. And what I found? Oh, Karen wasn't ready for that. I spent that night like a detective in a true crime documentary. Every rule, every clause, every dusty amendment buried in the HOA's bylaws. It was like reading a Bible written by control freaks. Then I found it, Section 8, Clause 4. Board members must maintain full compliance with zoning and building codes. Interesting. Because last year Karen built that new shed behind her house, the one she bragged about holding her crafting empire. A quick call to city zoning confirmed it. No permit on file. Bingo. But I wasn't done. The bylaws also stated that board members couldn't use HOA funds for personal or non-approved purposes. Yet, I'd seen Karen using HOA landscaping crews to trim her hedges exclusively. I printed everything, organized it neatly, and labeled the folder The Karen Chronicles. By morning I was ready. When Karen strutted past my driveway again, she smirked. I hope you learned your lesson. Oh, I'm learning a lot, I said. Especially about Section 8, Clause 4. Her smile vanished. Excuse me. Maybe we should talk about your unpermitted shed at the next board meeting. For the first time she looked nervous. I sipped my coffee and smiled. The game had changed. Now, I wasn't the one on defense.by midweek. The rumors had spread like wildfire. Mrs. Jenkins from across the street stopped me mid-lawn mow. Is it true you're challenging Karen? Depends, I said. Are you on her side? Good heavens, no, she whispered. She fined me $25 for a bird feeder. That made 3 neighbors that day who'd quietly confessed their Karen grievances. Each had a story. A flag too faded, a doormat too sarcastic, a car parked too long. I started to realize Karen's leadership had turned the whole neighborhood into a mini surveillance state. Everyone was tired, but no one wanted to be the first to speak up. Until now. I invited a few of them over for coffee and muffins. We talked. We laughed. And when I mentioned the unpermitted shed, their eyes widened. You mean she's breaking the same rules she fines us for? Greg muttered. Exactly, I said. That's when the plan formed, slow, quiet, and perfectly legal. We'd attend the next HOA meeting en masse. I'd bring the evidence, the others would back me up, and we'd call for a vote to audit her leadership. Karen thought she was the queen of the HOA. But every monarchy falls eventually, and this one was about to crumble in spectacular suburban fashion. The day of the HOA meeting arrived like Judgment Day for suburbia. The community center buzzed with quiet tension. People whispered in corners, clutching copies of Karen's letters like evidence in a courtroom drama. Karen entered in full dictator mode, clipboard, pearls, and a glare that could melt steel. She smiled that politicians smile and announced, "Let's maintain civility tonight." Translation. No one questioned me. When she called on me, I stood. I'd like to discuss enforcement consistency, I began, particularly how some board members, including the president, appear to be in violation of Section 8, Clause 4. Karen's pen froze midair. Excuse me. I pulled out photos, her shed, her private hedge trimming, her misuse of HOA landscaping. Gasps rippled across the room. That's taken out of context, she stammered. I smiled. Context being, you fine me for a garden gnome while your shed doesn't even have a permit? The neighbors murmured louder now. Even Greg, her biggest supporter, looked uneasy. Karen slammed her clipboard. You're harassing me. No, I said calmly. I'm holding you to your own standards. The room went silent. Karen adjourned the meeting abruptly, red-faced, muttering about legal counsel. But the damage was done. For the first time, the neighborhood had seen her sweat. And once people see a crack in the crown, the fall is only a matter of time. Karen didn't take humiliation well. By the next morning, my lawn was under siege. I woke up to find 3 new violations taped to my door. Unapproved hose reel. Mailbox slightly tilted. Wind chime volume exceeds acceptable decibel levels. Wind chime volume. I didn't even know that was measurable. I laughed, but it was the bitter kind. This wasn't about order anymore, it was revenge. So I kept recording. Every note. Every photo. Every absurd rule. Then Karen made her fatal mistake. That afternoon her son Ethan appeared again, phone in hand, recording me unloading groceries. Smile for the HO loser, he snickered. I ignored him, but when he grabbed one of my bags again and walked off I shouted, "Ethan, that's theft." Karen stormed out. "Stop yelling at my son. Then tell him to stop stealing." She pointed her finger. "You're unstable. I'm calling the authorities." "Go ahead," I said, smirking. She did. Right there on speakerphone dialing 911. And that's when I knew things were about to get beautifully ironic. She was calling the cops on me. I just leaned against my truck waiting. The responding officer was going to have one heck of a laugh. Karen paced her driveway like a general awaiting backup. "Yes, operator," she said loudly. "There's a man threatening me in front of my home." I stood 10 feet away holding my phone, recording the entire performance. Ethan chimed in. "He's acting crazy." I grinned. "Yeah, crazy enough to buy my own groceries." Minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. Officer Daniels stepped out, my colleague. He looked from Karen to me, then burst out laughing. "Oh no," Karen said. "You know him." Daniels nodded. "Of course. That's Chief Miller." Karen blinked. "Chief what?" "Police Chief Miller," he clarified, clearly enjoying himself. "My boss." The silence that followed was delicious. Karen's jaw dropped. Ethan's phone wobbled. I crossed my arms. "You wanted the authorities. Here I am." Daniels leaned toward me. "Want me to file the report?" I smiled. "Please do. Theft of groceries and false 911 call." Karen stammered. This is a misunderstanding." "No, ma'am," I said. "This is accountability." She tried to apologize, but the officer was already noting her statement. The neighbors peeked from windows, phones recording. By evening, clips were circulating on the neighborhood Facebook group. Karen calls cops on police chief. The comments were brutal. And the best part? That was just the beginning. The next day my phone buzzed nonstop. Neighbors sent screenshots of the HOA chat thread. Karen was in full meltdown mode, posting paragraphs defending herself, blaming editing, and context manipulation. Too late. The internet had spoken. By afternoon, the HOA board called an emergency session. I attended, calm as ever. Karen arrived late, sunglasses on indoors, muttering about defamation. Vice President Sheila cleared her throat. "Given recent publicity, we need to address leadership credibility." Karen interrupted. I was provoked. "He set me up." I smiled slightly. "Karen, you called 911 because your son stole my groceries. That's not provocation. That's poor parenting." A snort came from the back. Then another laugh. The board was losing patience. Sheila read from the bylaws, the same section I'd quoted earlier. "Given verified noncompliance with zoning codes, misuse of HOA funds, and conduct unbecoming of office, we recommend removal." Karen went pale. "You can't remove me." Greg sighed. "Actually, we can." And then, like a scene from a reality show finale, hands started raising, one by one. "Motion to remove?" Sheila asked. "I," echoed through the room. Karen's voice cracked. "You'll regret this." But she was done. The Gnome Rebellion had officially overthrown the Queen. That night, I finally enjoyed peace, and my ice cream, which I'd replaced after Ethan's little stunt. I sat on my porch, Gerald the gnome by my side, watching neighbors walk by with smiles instead of scowls. Mrs. Jenkins waved. "Heard she's packing up her shed." I raised my spoon. "Permit required," I said, and we both laughed. The neighborhood felt lighter, like everyone could finally breathe again. People started bringing out decorations they'd hidden for years. Flamingos, windmills, even a pink mailbox. It was glorious chaos. And best of all, the HOA board announced a revision of community rules. Fairer, friendlier, and far less Karen. Why? Karen herself? She tried to sue the board for defamation, but the city inspector hit her first. That unpermitted shed had to go. I watched as contractors dismantled her crafting empire, piece by piece. Poetic justice tastes sweeter than double fudge. The following week I got a new letter, but this one was from the HOA's new president, Sheila. Dear Chief Miller, thank you for helping restore integrity to our community. Also, your gnome family is delightful. I pinned it to my fridge, right beside the photo of Karen's meltdown. Neighborhood harmony restored, one gnome at a time. With Karen dethroned, the neighborhood entered its post-dictatorship era. For the first time in years, people actually talked to each other. Kids played on sidewalks. Someone even organized a barbecue, something Karen had once banned for air quality concerns. Sheila and I walked around inspecting lawns, not for violations, but for improvement ideas. This is how it should have been, she said. Agreed, I replied. Then came the funniest twist, Karen's son Ethan. He approached sheepishly, sunglasses on, holding a bag. Sorry for the groceries, he mumbled. I peered inside. It was ice cream, the exact brand I liked. Apology accepted, I said. He nodded. Mom's moving in with my aunt. I smiled. Good. Maybe the next HOA she joins has a sense of humor. Within weeks, the neighborhood's vibe shifted from tension to laughter. People started calling my place Freedom House. Even Gerald got a makeover. Someone painted a tiny badge on his vest. Chief Gnome, it read. Honestly, that little statue had sparked a revolution. The lesson? Sometimes the smallest things, a gnome, a rule, or a grocery bag, can topple the biggest egos. And when justice comes wrapped in suburban absurdity, it's impossible not to smile. Just when we thought it was over, Karen made one final attempt to reclaim her honor. A letter arrived, not from the HOA but from her lawyer. She accused me of defamation, harassment, and public humiliation. I chuckled. 3 for 3, I said aloud. My attorney, a friend from the department, laughed when he read it. She doesn't have a case, Chief. You've got recordings, witnesses, and the truth. We sent a polite response, one line. Proceed at your own risk. She didn't. But the neighborhood did host one more meeting. A farewell gathering to officially close the Karen chapter. I was asked to speak. I stepped up and said, we all learned something valuable. That community doesn't mean control, and leadership doesn't mean dictatorship. Applause erupted. Mrs. Jenkins shouted, to Gerald! To Gerald! Everyone echoed, raising cups. And just like that, our suburban kingdom had peace. Karen. She drove by one last time, scowling from her SUV, snapping a photo of my gnomes. I waved cheerfully. Smile for the bylaws. She sped off. The last I heard, she joined another HOA 2 towns over. Poor souls. But hey, every legend needs a sequel. Looking back, I realized how ridiculous and important the whole ordeal was. Ridiculous because it started with a gnome. Important because it showed how easily power warps people when unchecked. I used to think being police chief meant my battles were all on the streets. Turns out, some of the fiercest happen in cul-de-sacs with pastel mailboxes. People began asking for advice on HOA conflicts. Document everything, I told them. Facts beat noise. Eventually, the city invited me to speak at a local homeowners forum. Topic: when neighborhood rules go rogue. I started my speech with, once upon a time, a woman named Karen fined me $50 for a garden gnome. She lost her presidency, her shed, and her credibility, but gained internet fame. The audience roared with laughter. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about showing that decency and humor can outlast tyranny, even the suburban kind. And if a small ceramic fisherman helped prove that, well, I'd call that justice served, lawn edition. I didn't expect the video of the 911 call to go viral, but once it hit the internet, it exploded. HOA Karen versus police chief became a meme overnight. People started tagging me in fan art. One showed me holding a gnome like a trophy. News stations reached out. Late-night shows joked about it. Even our mayor sent a note. Well handled, Chief. Remind me never to fine you for decorations. The department teased me endlessly. Hey Chief, any new gnome crimes this week? I played along. It was all in good fun. But the best part was the messages from people nationwide. Homeowners who'd faced their own Karens. You inspired us to stand up, one wrote. We're bringing back our flamingos. That made it worth it. Not the fame, not the memes, but knowing that a silly little neighborhood feud reminded people that authority needs accountability. Still, I couldn't help but grin every time I passed Gerald. Who knew he'd become an internet icon? From violation to viral. Not bad for a piece of painted clay. Months later, life in Oakwood Hills is blissfully normal. Kids ride bikes. Neighbors wave. The HOA actually helps people now instead of hunting them. The bylaws were rewritten, simple and fair. Respect your neighbors, keep things tidy, and no one cares about your decorations. Gerald now stands proudly in my front yard, surrounded by flowers and friends, 14 gnomes strong. Every time I look at them, I remember the chaos, the laughter, and the sweet taste of justice. Ethan even stops by sometimes, now working at the grocery store. "We've got a sale on fudge ice cream, Chief," he says, grinning. I nod. "Keep the change, kid." Karen. She's just a story now, one that neighbors still whisper about at barbecues. Remember when she called 911 on the police chief? We all laugh. The neighborhood's better, stronger, happier. And as for me, I learned that justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a pointy red hat and holds a fishing pole. So if you ever move into an HOA neighborhood and someone tells you not to rock the boat, remember Gerald, the gnome who started a revolution. Because sometimes peace isn't given, sometimes it's earned.